dark and stormy night, the rain came down in torrents, and two men sat in a cave. One said to the other, "Tell me a story." Storytelling is half as old as time, and Charles Dickens, one of the greatest writers of all time, is the mastermind behind some of English literature's most iconic novels and characters. This is the London home where Dickens lived between 1837 and 1839, completing Oliver Twist and Nicholas Nickleby. It marks the threshold of his literary superstardom. But it was his role as a journalist that paved the way for his literary career. Dickens is touted as the first modern journalist with a highly visual narrative style.
It's very interesting psychologically, the way he melds the social problems of the time with the troubles of his own psyche.
He was really interested in the supernatural. There are lots of things about ghosts and fairies and hauntings.
For years, he trampled the streets of London, chronicling the stories of the everyday man, but most popularly, the poor and working classes. One can't help but wonder what Dickens would be like working for the news of the world today. A leader in the phone hacking scandal, maybe? We asked.
Quite angry at journalistic intrusions into his own private life.
Yes.
At the same time, he did have sort of voyeuristic fantasies that he liked to express in his journalism.
There's moments in Little Dorrit where he imagines the narrator floating over the houses and taking the roofs off and being able to observe the drama within.
At Buckingham University is one of the world's leading Dickens experts and author of Dickens the Journalist, Dr. John Drew. Drew, assisted by 2 senior editors and 100 active volunteers, have been on a 6-year mission transcribing and correcting hundreds of original Dickens journals since 2006. To mark the February 7th Bicentenary of Dickens' birth, next year, March, a free access and downloadable online edition of Dickens' weekly magazines will be launched. Journals from Household Words and All the Year Round will also be available in text-to-speech synthesis, the first of its kind.
It was famously said of Dickens by a critic in 1858 that he describes London like a special correspondent for posterity. Now, if we regard ourselves as posterity and we are modern, then Dickens is still our special correspondent.
Dickens admirers are just as enthralled by his work today as they were decades ago, with Hollywood being his biggest fan.
It was the best of times.
Please, sir, I want some more.
Lady Dedlock, is it? She's a very fine lady, a beauty without peer.
To recognize his bicentenary, millions of people worldwide will celebrate in the world's biggest Dickens festival. It will see the largest retrospective ever staged of any visual works inspired by Dickens, as just one of a catalog of activities to mark the momentous occasion. Each year on the anniversary of Dickens' birth, a wreath is laid on his grave here in Poynt's Corner at Westminster Abbey. It's a small stone for a great novelist, and nearly 200 years later, his legacy lives on.